Hey everyone, guess it's time for another video. Hope everyone's doing alright in our wonderful pandemic times. Anyway, this video is going to be about 4mm MicroBit holders specifically, and 4mm MicroBit sets, and some other stuff. But mostly about 4mm MicroBit holders. I've been thinking about doing this video for a long time. I've also spent and put in a bunch of effort into 4mm bits, from my standpoint, probably not from other people's. But anyway, so let's get into it. Just like most people, when I first started out doing, having tools or whatnot, I had, your little screwdrivers like, from the Craftsman set. You get your long slotted, your short slotted. I picked these up later on. These are the real tiny slotteds. Of course, you got, little Phillips, and I had this old Phillips for a long time, and this is a Torx bit I've got, or Torx driver I've got. I've had some others. I've given them away. I had another set. I gave it away to a relative. But, over the years, that was all I needed. But over time, of course, you find that you need more stuff. You start working with, as technology's advanced, manufacturers like Apple, for example, start using non-standard fasteners, aka the pentalobe, and then you find that others use smaller and smaller fasteners as their electronics get smaller. So these, the stuff that you get, say, with a Craftsman set isn't going to cut it anymore. I mean, this thing's great, this little driver here, but at the end of the day, this P0, which is what this is just not going to cut the mustard for, some even smaller Phillips, or, if there's some slot or whatnot. So you end up starting looking around for sets. Let's see, I had a kind of a hodgepodge of stuff over the years. Like I said, these things, but then I started branching out and picking up better stuff. So for example, I picked up this set. It's a Kobalt set. It's got slotted Torx and Phillips. It's kind of an unusual set. It's actually not a 4mm set, or a 4mm MicroBit set, but we'll come back to it in a minute. And then, this thing had some issues. It wasn't really the best. So I ended up, and I got, I'd been watching the Wiha set for a long time. And to break this down, this one actually, it's in the case. This is the, I think it's the Pro, the System 4 Pro Micro set. I don't remember the specific name. The part number for this, just the set itself, is 75968. And to give you an example of what that actually is, ends up being this. So let's clear a few things out of the way. I'm going to clear all these out of the way, these standards. These other ones I've had for a while, and start talking about this. So it's a very nice set. It is pricey, but I got it on a special. Now, one of the oddball things about this is that when I picked it up, I picked this up on sale, and then later on, originally I just was going to have this, but then over time I said, let me go ahead and get a better set, or get the case, and I found the case pretty cheap. And in fact, and an oddity, it ended up being where the case plus the set, when I bought them separately, ended up being cheaper. So kind of an unusual thing. The part number on the case is 91204, and if you want, of course, you can buy the set and the case combined. That is 75971. I like this set a lot. It's very thorough. Has a lot of coverage in terms of bits. It's got your pentalobe. You've got your basic Phillips. You have a ton of slotted. You also have some Torx. You have hex. You have, of course, your sockets in both metric and standard sizes. It also has another thing which I'll come to in a second. It has metric hex as well. This set pretty much, other than one shortcoming, really will cover pretty much everything you need. I'll get to the shortcoming in a bit because it relates to this set, which I'll talk about later. Well, actually, let me talk about it now. So This set is great, except it's got a shortcoming. And the major shortcoming for it is it doesn't have what's called the Y bits. They are, I think it's Y1, Y0, and then it starts adding zeros, I think up to 3. So like you have Y0 and then Y00 is even smaller. It's a similar thing with the Philips. So, you know, Philips, they have like a Philips 0 and they have a Philips 00 and so forth. And to give you an idea of what a Y is, it's actually very similar to a Philips. I got this crude but hopefully effective diagram which will show the difference. You know, Philips is kind of like a cross if you're looking at the bit from the top, while the Y, or sometimes I've seen it referred to as a tri-wing, it's like a triangle. So you can see these would be the raised points of the bit, while these would be the raised cross of the Philips. And that's kind of an idea of what it looks like. So what that ends up being is, you know, again, this is one of those things where a manufacturer tries to use a non-standard fastener. You know, they could have used a Torx fastener because there's Torx that are really tiny. I mean, you've got Torx down to, you know, T1, which is this bit here, for example, out of this, you know, set. So it's kind of another one of those things where, similar to the pentalobe that Apple uses in their iPhones and other devices, this particular manufacturer, of course, is well known. It is Nintendo. They use this in the Switch, and in this particular case, they use it in the Switch controller. So they have, I'll grab a screwdriver so I can show you. These are all, and let me get close and I'll try to focus a bit. Hopefully it'll focus. Yeah. These 4, or 3, or no, 4 are Y, I think they're Y0s. And again, you know, you can't really open this up, this Switch controller. This is the right controller. You've got a left controller that comes with your Switch. You can't open these up without it. So it's kind of a pain in the neck, really, that you have to buy this this proprietary driver to undo or unscrew a proprietary fastener that's in there if you need to fix it. And there's a good reason to do it. There's been issues with Nintendo's controllers having problems with, they get dirty easily and then they become unresponsive, and well, you don't really want to go buy another one because all you really need to do is clean it. Well, now you got to go buy a proprietary screwdriver bit just to take the thing apart so you can do that. Anyway, the reason why this is important was because my son had a problem where one of his controllers was becoming unresponsive. It was having issues. So I was rather surprised, and I'll talk about something about this in a second. I was rather surprised that my really nice set didn't have one. So I struggled with that. I was like, well, that's kind of a problem. And what I ended up doing was I looked around, and first off, it was even hard to even find the whole Y bit and, you know, what it was and all that. And then once you find it, then finding a bit was really difficult. Except, in my case, I ended up going to Walmart and I picked this up. This is a inexpensive, made in China set. And ironically, it does not have pentalobe. But what it does have, it has Y-type 000, number 0, or Y-type 000, 0, and 1. And that's why I picked it up. This set, of course, is really cheap. I think I paid like $9 or $10 for it. And the only reason why I picked it up, honestly, was for the Ys. Otherwise, I wouldn't have bought it. I've got this. But, you know, it's okay. It's fine. But it's you know, pretty straightforward set. We'll go back and cover it in a minute. So that's why I have that. Now, recently I was digging around and I found Ifixit sells Y bits, and I've ordered some. And because of shipping disruptions, they've taken forever. I would have shown them in this video, but they're not here. But it doesn't matter. You know, this pretty much gives you a rough idea of what the bits are. But that was the only thing that was lacking in this set, which kind of surprised me. And in fact, that's one of the things I've noticed, that Wera, for example, they don't have any Y bits either. They have pentalobe. And then, of course, you know, Wiha has tons of it. This is their System 4 set, and they have just a mind-boggling array of bits in their System 4 thing. Wera has a bunch too. Of course, they have their excellent drivers, like, you know, say this one, which we'll talk about in a second. But in general, that is an unusual shortcoming. Of course, this Kobalt one doesn't have anything at all. So that's why I bought this set. But when I get those in, and assuming they work, and I'm pretty sure they will, I'm going to give the set to someone because it just takes up space, and the only reason I bought it was for that. Now, it's a pretty decent set. In fact, I'll go ahead and talk about it here. There's some unusual things about it. These holders, they pop out of this case. And like, you got a bunch of different slotted, and of course they have Phillips. They have hex and Torx and all that, and as you can tell, it's not necessarily the best thing in. They have an extension. One thing that's a disadvantage with this one is it's friction fit. It's not magnetic, and I'll kind of talk about that more in a minute. Case itself is pretty decent, but you know, it's cheap, made in China, bought Walmart. That's not really what we're here for. So, you know, if that's okay with you, then go ahead. And the only reason why I picked this up really was because it was all that I had. That I needed to be able, my son and I need to be able to work on his controller, so we picked it up. But I've already found something in which will allow me to move on. Then, of course, we have the Wera set. Now, this is the Wera 2020 Easter egg set. I have a video where I covered this briefly, or in some in depth, but I'm going to go back in depth again about some of this stuff. And it's got its own things, of course. It's got some, you know, a couple of Phillips, a couple of Torx, a couple of slotted, and I've commented in depth about what's unusual about this is that Wera normally doesn't sell this, but we're going to go back into it here in a minute. So that's kind of an overview of the sets themselves, but I'm going to go into depth about some of the stuff. Let us see here. We're going to put this aside because, well, we're going to cover real quick. So the primary focus of this really, other than maybe covering some issues with these sets, is the bit holders themselves. If you remember my Wera Easter egg set, I talk about why this bit holder, to me at least, was so enticing. You know, really wanted it, but of course Wera doesn't make it normally. And it, you know, they have a wonderful shape, and they're 4mm screwdrivers. Well, I say 4mm. That's inappropriate. Their micro screwdrivers are very nice, but they're also pricey, and you know, I don't really want to go get a whole bunch of them. I don't need it. It's kind of a space thing. One thing that's nice about a bit set versus, say, these are, it's very compact. I can have this, I can have a bit holder, and then I'm done. So that's always been a plus. Now, the micro 4mm micro bits in general, you know, Wera has their proprietary version themselves, which I don't have any of those, which is, they have their Half Moon and then their HIOS. You can go look those up if you want. So they're not compatible with regular 4mm bit holders. So you end up with this kind of situation where, you know, they have this wonderful handle, but you can't actually use it with anybody else's bits. And lots of people make these. The 3 individual Y bits I ordered from Ifixit, they have their own sets. I don't have any. I didn't really feel like buying any. Whereas I went to Walmart and picked this up. So it's not like any of these are hard to find. And it's kind of perplexing that Wera would do that. But hey, that's their choice and they can do whatever. So we're going to set that aside. This is a 4mm hex driver. One thing that is peculiar about this is the depth of this is actually really small. You can only go in maybe 2-3 millimeters tops, which is kind of unusual, but okay, it's the way it is. Anyway, so let's go into the specifics about some of these sets, specifically on the holders. So, if you remember, I mentioned this Kobalt set as one of the first ones I had that I picked up. I've had it for a few years, and it wasn't expensive. And there's another set I think that Kobalt still offers that you can pick up at Lowe's. That's more money and has more bits. But I remember before at the start I said this is not a 4mm bit set, or a holder for that matter, which is kind of a shame. It's not a bad holder. I actually like it a lot. The spinner's pretty good. You can't really tell it in here, but this is aluminum and has a really nice texture that in your hand it feels really good. This is a nice rubber grip here. So for example, if you're going to go and screw into something, let's see, I'll simulate this. Like, assume there's a screw here. You can really do some really nice, it's very controlled, very nice. It fits well in the hand and it's very easy to use. So I really like this a lot. The bits themselves aren't bad, but they're unusual. I'm going to bring this up a bit and try to focus. Hopefully it'll go. Yeah. They're double-ended. And one thing that's interesting is they're actually not 4mm bits. So if I take one of these and I try to put it in a bit holder, it's not going to work. First off, it's not going to work because it's double-ended. But the second problem is it's not 4mm. It's actually smaller. And to show you that, I'll bring out a dial caliper. We will measure real quick. Hopefully you can see that. It's about 3.46 millimeters. All right, well, that's no good. So not only does that mean that this doesn't work in one of those, but if you try to take a 4mm bit and put it in this, it won't work. It is the holder for the bit in this handle is too small, and so it's useless. So that's the problem with this. It's kind of too bad in a way. I'd really like to use this holder. In fact, I probably wouldn't have bought what I bought if I was able to use this, because this thing is pretty good. So with that said, what does that mean for me? Well, what it meant for me was I needed to continue to search and hunt around for stuff, and then that's ultimately what's led me to getting this set, because this has a lot of bits that are nice. Now, let's talk about this Wiha set. Oh, one other thing before I go there. You know, this isn't a bad little holder, and I say holder like a holder for the whole thing, except it's got one issue, and that it doesn't really hold it very well. It just falls right out. That's the only downside with this. Apart from that, it's actually pretty good. You can, it actually holds a large number of bits. You have to open it up, but you've got kind of like a three-way. Let me move this out of the way. It's got kind of a three-way setup here where you've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, plus another bit there makes 9. These are double-ended, so you really have 18 bits. So if you want like a basic set that has slotted Phillips and Torx, this is pretty nice. It actually works pretty decent. So they've got, you know, ranges anywhere from I think like T5 up to like T15 in terms of the Torx. The Phillips goes from I think it's P1 down to I think it's P000. I don't know though, that might be off. And then their slottage are pretty small too. So it's a pretty decent setup and if you want some basic stuff. But if you're going to do anything serious in terms of electronics, it's not going to work too well. One nice thing about this holder is it's very compact. It folds up. Like I said, other than the disadvantage of this thing falling out, it's actually a pretty decent little set to say throw in a toolbox or something if you need to work on something small. So that's pretty much it for this one. Like I said, this really isn't a 4mm set, so it kind of doesn't count in this. But I wanted to call it out because this is something to keep in mind. A warning that I would say here is you need to make sure that if you're going to buy a set and you want to focus on, say, 4mm bits and have that compatibility, which we're going to talk about more in a minute, then you need to make sure that it's a 4mm bit set, because like, for example, the Wera, they make it very clear if it's their HIOS or their half moon bits, they don't work with standard 4mm microbit sets and holders and so forth. So just something to keep in mind. So that's it for that. Now, let's go on and talk about this. So, you know, I had the Kobalt, and then I went and I said, well, that's not good enough. I need to go forward. I've been chasing after this for a long time. Decided to finally pick it up. It's got some nice things about it. It's got this wonderful foam tray. It really holds things in well. Except, of course, it can come out. No big deal, though. But even then, that's still pretty difficult to do something with. Let's see if I can remember where this goes. That is there, there, and then there. But for the most part, it's pretty solid. It does come with a plate, and then you have a magnet that you can fit in the case, or you can, it's got, let's see here. Yeah, it's got a sticky thing, so you can actually put it up and mount this like on something. And then use the magnet That's kind of like a mounting plate. So like, I guess if you have like, say, you know, like a desk, so you could take it and you could mount it up vertically like on there. So maybe at an angle or whatnot. For the most part, it works pretty well. There's some other things that are nice about it. You do get an extension. Let's see, I think the extension is, it's not very magnetic. Yeah, I think it is. And we're going to talk more about the magnetism in a minute because that's kind of important. Yeah, I don't think the extension is magnetic, which is kind of too bad. I think this is actually kind of friction fit. It's okay. It's fine if you need it. One thing though that, this is the primary focus of this, of course, is the bit holders. It includes 2 bit holders. This is an ESD safe one, and then it also includes this other, which is actually not a bad holder. This is Wiha part number, as you can tell, 75801. I think you can buy this independently. We're going to talk about the holders in a second. Also, it comes with this one, which is a nicer one. Like as I said a second ago, it's a Wiha part number 759. This one is magnetic and it's got bit storage, but we'll go on that in a second. So these were part of this set, and okay, they're fine, but I was kind of dissatisfied with it. So I then went and found this beta, you know, with the notion, of course, that I can't find, in fact, I'll go ahead and pull it out. Since I can't find this, since it was a, only the last time Wera produced this bit holder was 2017 as a part of their advent calendar. I did find this beta, and this beta is pretty nice. The beta is part number 1256/30. It's about $11. It's magnetic. It's got a spinner. Again, we'll talk about it in a second. And then I noticed one day that Wiha had come out with a new bit holder for their 4mm, their System 4 4mm bits. This is their Pico Finish. It's the System 4 Pico Finish bit holder. It is part number 26003. This one's actually pretty nice. Again, I'll talk about it in a minute. So, and again, just to repeat, I then of course have this particular bit holder, which is the Wera, and then finally we've got this this one as well, which comes with this set, and I'll talk about it in a bit as well. So these are kind of like, if you want to think about bit holders, these are kind of the selection here of kind of a comparison, and they do. These aren't, I guess you could say, uncommon. They're pretty well known in terms of styles. For example, I've seen others that have this. Of course, everybody knows the Wera. I've seen others that have something similar to this. I've seen, these are pretty common actually. I think Big Clive has one. I don't think he has a VI, he has another brand. But these are all kind of similar styles. There's some subtle differences though, and in some cases kind of large differences which have a significant impact on how well these things perform. So let's get into it. We'll start out with the first one on the list, which is, I mentioned before, this VI at 75801. One of the problems with it, of course, is it's not magnetic. It's a friction fit, and you got to watch it because if you stick this in too far, yeah, it's a real problem. And it's very difficult to remove the bit. I don't like this bit holder much. I guess the ESD safe is a plus, and it does have a spinner, but quite frankly, this feels cheap, and considering the quality of this set, this is a pretty anemic holder, honestly. But, you know, it's what's included. So the Wiha 759, which is also included in the set, is actually pretty nice. It's got, it's magnetic. So let's see, you got the magnet, and then I'm going to pick another bit, and you can't really feel it, but it's in there. And then if it's pretty good, it should be able to pick up. So in this case, it's not going to pick up too much, but the magnet isn't that strong. And the magnet's really handy because if you have a good magnet, you can, and actually, give me a second, I'm going to try to find a screw that I might be able to use. Hang on a second, I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. This will be kind of a test screw, if you will. It's a little on the big side for what you would find in an electronics device for something that is set like this, or one of these other sets would be used for, but it's a pretty good test. So, you know, a good one will be able to pick it up and hold it. And in this case, this this bit holder, the 759, is pretty decent in that regard. So I think that's a big plus. It's got a pretty decent feel in the hand. Now this has one significant downside in that it doesn't have a spinner. Now this is, however, this surface on this end is pretty smooth, but when I've been, you know, say let's into something or unscrewing something, I've had a problem with it in that, like if I'm going and I'm trying to undo something, let's see, I think I've done this before where I have had a tendency to unscrew the end piece. Now, this is a feature of this. You unscrew the end cap and you can store bits in it, you know, like so. So you can put a couple in. But, you know, I'm not sure how valuable that really is. I guess to some people it might be, and that's good. For me, though, it's not really any value. And in fact, I'd rather have a spinner. Of course, it's also got little clips, so if you want to clip it in a pocket, you can do that as well. All in all, though, this isn't a bad holder, but I still think it's kind of lacking based on what, comparatively speaking, for this bit set. So the next one I'm going to cover is the Beta. Again, this is the well, no, I'm sorry, that's incorrect. This is the 125630. This is the 4mm bit holder with handle. It's pretty basic plastic finish, kind of a rubbery grip here. Not bad. It's got a pretty decent spinner. It is also magnetic, which is nice. The bits fit quite well. You can pick it up. Let's see if that is one of the downsides of this one is that though it is magnetic, the magnet is very strong, which is kind of a downside of this. It is magnetic from the standpoint of holding this, but the strength of it isn't very much. So that's kind of a downside for this one. I do like this holder though. It feels pretty good in the hand. It's not too bad. If you want to compare, say, size-wise, it is roughly the same length as the Wiha. And if we're going to look at it from metric, let's see, where's my, here it is. It is, hang on a second here, it's roughly a little over 10 millimeters long, and the Wiha is as well. Not a bad holder. I think it's around 11 bucks. A little hard to find, but if you search for the part number, you'll find it pretty easily. I've used it a few times. It's handy, but it's still not the best. I did notice, the next one I noticed was this. This is the Wiha Pico Finish 26003. This is actually, I'll be frank, if Wiha wanted to really upgrade this set, they would get rid of this and they would put this in its place. It'll actually almost fit, but it doesn't. And then this would probably be almost a perfect set, quite frankly, because this handle, this Pico Finish, Wiha Pico Finish, is significantly better than this one. There's just no comparison. The spinner is nice. It's actually fat. If you compare it to, say, this one, there's almost double the size. They have, of course, the Wiha at the end. Lengthwise, it's almost exactly 10 millimeters. It's magnetic, and one of the other pluses is the magnet on this is very, 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 very strong. I like that a lot. It really is nice. This is the Pico Finish, which I don't know if it's similar to the soft finish. And then, of course, they have kind of hard plastic here. The shape's really good, fits really good in your hand. Actually, I like this bit holder a lot. It's very nice. So the Beta was about, I think, $11. This is roughly, I think I've seen it on KC Tool for $8, I think. But it's good. I'll have links, of course, to all these things where I can. I can't for a couple of items. But this is a really nice bit holder. And they do have sets now that have this, but they're not this Pro set. So I don't know, they might change what they do, and that's a thing to keep in mind. So in the future, you might actually see this set with this as opposed to one of the other ones. So anyway, it's something to keep in mind. This is a good one. That's all I'm going to say about that. Then we got this. This is the no-name made in China Walmart one. It's not bad. Let's see, I think, well, I thought it did. I thought this thing was supposed to pop open. I could be wrong. Anyway, it also holds 4mm microbits, but it does not have a magnet. It is friction fit. There's like a spring or something in there that holds it in place. It's fine. I mean, if you like one that's kind of bigger in your hand, this works. Of course, it will also hold the Wiha extension, so from that regard, it's pretty nice. Of course, this set itself includes its own extension, which is also 4mm, and it also is spring-loaded, so of course you can do this. Now, I'm making kind of an important point here. This is a 4mm bit, but it's holding the Wiha with no problem. They're very compatible, so long as all these manufacturers follow along with the 4mm bits. It's really hard to mess it up, and they will work together. It's just something to keep in mind. Unlike the Kobalt that I mentioned earlier, these all work together. And here, for example, you can take the Wera and put it in there, and it fits and holds it pretty nicely. So, negatives, well, the obvious one is not magnetic. Fat in the hand, I don't know. That's kind of a personal preference. Lengthwise, it's a smidge over 10 millimeters. I'm sorry, 10 centimeters. And I've been saying millimeters this whole time, so I apologize for that. Really meant centimeters. But yeah, it's a little over 10 centimeters long. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it works, but, you know, it's up to you whether or not you think that's important or not. I'm not really going to talk much more about it. There's not really much to say. Oh, well, there is one other downside. It does not have a spinner, so if you care about that, and the reason why the spinner is important is you can use one-handed operation very easily. So if you need to hold, say, a part, and or hold, say, let's say you're pulling something out of a computer, and you have some wires on the way, and you're pushing in, the one-handed operation is very nice because you can come in, and also with the magnet, you can come in and you can hold the screw. Let's say we've got this one. You can come in, you can hold the screw, all one-handed operation, and you can screw something in without any trouble because you can spin this and you can put pressure on it. You can also, of course, go the other way. So like if you're unscrewing, the same thing applies. That's the ultimate combination of, you know, usefulness for this is you can take it out and put it in with one hand. And that's why all this is important. So let's talk about the last one. This, of course, is the one that kind of sent me down this chase of buying all these bit holders. This is, of course, the Wera 822. Has I think an extended part number, which is 051485. Don't worry about trying to find it. You won't, other than, of course, in the couple of references that you find, which is this Easter egg set and then the 2017 Advent calendar. Wera just doesn't have them. They only produce them, apparently, for these sets. In the set itself, I'll detour real quick and talk about that. There is a Torx 5 and a Torx 6 bits in it. It also, that's the 867 series. It has a couple of slotteds. Those are the 800 series. It has 2 hexes, which will be those. That's the 840 series. It's a 1.5 millimeter and a 2 millimeter hex. And then you have the 851 Phillips. There's a Phillips 0 and a Phillips 00. Those are the bits that are included. Of course, you have these others. I'm not really going to tell them, but we are going to talk about this in a minute, and there's a reason why. Because there's something in this Wiha set that's very interesting. So, for this last one, of course, you know, it's got the wonderful shape for the handle for the precision Wera screwdrivers that everybody knows. You got your typical Wera W kind of pattern that follows. It's a nice holder. It's got a nice spinner that spins very freely on the back. It's got a good magnet. Again, it's quite powerful. It's the same thing you can pick up easily. This, again, of course, is a big plus. And, you know, it's, as you would expect, it's very compatible. I mean, I've been in this entire time using a Wiha bit in it, but you can use, of course, the Wera bit. And to even prove the point, you can use these cheapy Chinese ones that work just as well, where you can take one of them and put it in, and it works, and they're all compatible. That's the plus about having these 4mm bits versus proprietary things, which Again, I'm not going to criticize Wera for doing it. That's their choice, but I choose not to buy them. I want to have compatible ones because sometimes you find that something works better from one manufacturer or one type of item versus, say, something else. So, for example, if I needed to pull off my switch screws, I can't use these. They don't have Y bits, but I can use the cheap Chinese ones. So that's something to keep in mind, that compatibility or standardization, if you will, is a big plus. So that's where the value of this sort of thing comes in and why the whole point of the system is it's important. So all in all, that's kind of an overview of where these are at. Now, there's one other thing that Wiha has done that's really wonderful. They also include in this set, they include a bit that is, it's called the 1/4 to 4mm bit. I don't know if you can see that, it's probably not focused in, but this is basically an insert bit, an adapter, like you have adapters to go from 1/4 inch hex drive to like a socket. And basically it's a tiny socket is what it is. And what you can do with it, it's got a magnet in it. You can put in a bit and then you can take a standard like this Wera for the 1/4 inch hex drive, which you can use regular hex drive bits like this, right? Well, guess what? You can put this in here and now you have a hex standard hex drive, 1/4 inch hex drive handle or holder, and you can use 4mm bits. You can use any of them. You can put the extension in, like so, and then you can take one of these hex and you can put it in, there you go. You can do the same thing, which makes this extremely versatile. You can use, you know, others. So there are some that are pretty decent, like say this Ghidorah holder, which is kind of interesting itself because it's got this thing, and I'm going to talk about 1/4 inch hex bit holder some other time. But like you can take that, put it in here, now all of a sudden I can hold, again, these same 4mm microbits. So it's just something to keep in mind that this Wiha set has this bit, and you can buy this bit independently. It's a handy little thing, and again, it's got the magnet, so I don't think the magnet's very strong in this one. Yeah, it's not very good. That's the only downside about it, but it is there. It's available for you. So in this Ghidorah holder, you can of course do this, and you can do something like this. If you want, say, more torque, maybe, but I'm not sure that that's important for microbits so much. But anyway, it's just something that's there. It's an option. It's a really big plus about this. So for example, the Wera set, which has these, well, they don't have that. And that's kind of a negative, honestly, if you ask me, because that's handy to have. And I think that's a big plus in terms of the Wiha bits. And in fact, at first when I bought this, I was like, hey, did it have it? Well, I wasn't certain. And then when I got it, I said, yes, it has it, and that's a plus. Now, I haven't really had a need for it, but it's just something there that's just an advantage that this has over others, over competitors. So, I don't know that I have much more really to discuss about this. If I'm really going to break it down and say probably the best things about all of this, and it has been kind of an odyssey for me of trying different bit holders out, trying, you know, what works, what doesn't. I'd have to say though, if I'm thinking about this like in terms of ranking or what I prefer, I'd probably say that this is kind of where it's at for me, where the sad, pitiful Wiha 75801 is at the bottom. You got this cheapo Chinese one that came with a Walmart set. This one isn't bad, but it's not that good. The beta is decent. I really like the Pico Finish, and of course the Wera is very nice too. It's kind of an open question which one of these is better. I'd actually rank them the same for different reasons. This is kind of thinner and longer, so in some regards it's actually kind of harder to hold in some cases. But the Pico Finish, the Wiha Pico Finish, has a really nice feel in the hand, so that's kind of a plus. And then there's another option, which is if you use this 4mm insert holder, I guess adapter, and then use a bit, you can also use something like this. And I will say that this Wiha bit makes this tiny Wera holder, which is part number 813, and I think with the extended number being 809. I think that's right. Hang on. 805085. It really makes this a lot more useful. In fact, in some ways, this feels better than all of these combined. Now, you don't have the spinner, but this has a pretty smooth end, so you know, if you need to, you could probably do it. The only downside, of course, is you don't really have the same magnetic. The magnet in this adapter isn't as strong as if you get, say, with this or in the Wera regular bit holder. So anyway, lots of options, lots of flexibility, and I think all in all, I'm pretty covered now. And when I get those Y0 bits from Ifixit, I think I'll have my set completely covered because I'll have this, and that's going to cover me pretty much completely. There are other sets I looked at and I didn't buy. Ifixit does have a bunch of them, but they are made in China, so that is kind of downside. But they are comprehensive, and they have about 2 or 3 varieties. You know, decent prices, but you know, I'm not sure of the quality yet since I haven't gotten those bits in. Lee Valley has a set that they picked up as well. I considered buying it. It has a few other things like tweezers and chip lifter and things like that, which neither of this has, but I don't really know that fits in with this. This is for fasteners, right? Tweezers and whatnot, for me, seem to be something different that I want to pick up independent of this. So I don't know that falls into this, but anyway, I don't really think there's much more to cover. I think I've beaten this all into the ground pretty well. So one thing to keep in mind is that all of these are compatible. As I said before, keeping that as long as you're making sure that these are 4mm bits, they're all going to be compatible. They're all going to work together. I really like this Wiha set a lot from terms of the bit selection itself. The holders, not so much, but you know, it happens. Perhaps their newer ones, which have started including this Pico Finish one, will be better. I haven't seen one yet that has this. The beta is pretty decent, and of course the Wera is excellent. And that's about it. I don't really have much else to cover, and I think that's about it. If you like, you can subscribe, ask for notifications, you can like, dislike, make a comment. I'm kind of curious what people's thoughts are about some of these things. There's a, you know, it's kind of something that we don't really think much about until you actually need it. And when you do need it, you really need it. And I've certainly dug into a bunch because I've run into things where it's just nice to have a good selection of tools. And especially in something like this where with the proprietary stuff like with the switch, it's really helpful to have it. So that's all I have to say, and I hope you enjoy it, and keep looking for more videos, or you can go back and watch some of my old ones, and as always, thanks for watching. Hey everyone, got some bonus footage here. I already finished editing and all that, recording the video last night and so on, but my Ifixit Bits, the Y bits came in this morning in the mail pretty early, so with a wonderful postal service doing some great work in these trying times. So I got my bits. The part numbers are, let's see here if I can read them, IF145-37380, and then IF145-37379, and then this should be 78. So they go in order from smaller to larger. These are the Y00, Y0, and Y1 size bits. If you recall from earlier in the video, that's what I talked about. So now they're here, I can at least go through real quick and do some rather interesting things. I can go and check real quick if they fit, and of course they do. They are 4mm micro bits, as you would expect. So both bit holders work great. I'm going to zoom in real quick though. Give me a second and show something kind of interesting. Let's see if I can get this just right. So on the left will be a Wera bit from the Wera set, and then in the middle here will be the Ifixit bit, and on the right will be a Wiha bit from the Wiha set. Let me focus. Let's see here. All right. So there's some interesting differences you can see pretty quickly. The Wera bit is they run the I guess the base or the 4mm hex profile all the way up, and then they have a tiny part here at the end, which is the actual bit itself that connects with the fastener, while the Ifixit is the exact opposite. It's quite the magnet grabbed it. That's how strong the magnet is in this. Let me get something else to point with. Here we go. While the in this case, I guess you call it the shank, is quite shorter than the Ifixit bit, and it's longer. So it's kind of interesting, this difference. It's a question of which one's better. I'd actually probably say this is better, simply because this is it allows for more delicate. I guess if you're working in very tight confines, like a small area, this will probably be a better profile to have. And then the Wiha is kind of in between. It's kind of like, if you want to look at it from a lengthwise perspective, the shank on it is halfway between the Ifixit and the Wera bit. So anyway, that's just something that came in. Unfortunately, it was there, but like I said, a second ago, it works, it fits. I'm going to be pretty happy with those. I'm probably going to put them like in a plastic bag and throw them in my this case. Anyway, that's a Modus Vintage. Hope you enjoy it. Thanks for watching.